Well, our guest today is Autumn Miles. She's a wife, she's a mom, an author, a radio host, and runs Autumn Miles Ministries. Her book, Gangster Prayer, shows readers how to passionately pray and relentlessly pursue God through prayer. Please welcome with me Autumn Miles. Hi, Autumn.
Hi.
So nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
Yes.
Well, you know, one of the first rules in book marketing is to have a title that stands out, and this is one, Gangster Prayer. I mean, a lot of people, they hear that and they're like, is she a gangster? It's like, what's going on here? Tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, it's meant to be bold, but God gave me the title. So I thought, I'm not going to try to come up with one myself. God gave me Gangster Prayer, and I'm going to go with that. And it came, I was watching a documentary on real life gangsters and mobsters. And I was intrigued by it. I watched it for weeks, and I watched their loyalty to their evil cause. And I was watching it, intrigued by that characteristic, and God said, those gangsters are more passionate about their mission of evil than you are of prayer.
Wow.
And as soon as the Holy Spirit said that to me, it convicted me deeply, and he was right. I was a professional Christian with an amateur prayer life.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that. There's a Latin American saint who wrote a book called The Violence of Love, and it kind of reminds me of that there's supposed to be this push, this like drive in your prayer, almost like when you see Jesus talking about the woman who, comes to the judge or the neighbor who knocks on the door, just keep pressing, keep pushing in. Is that really is it kind of what you're getting at?
Relentless. I think prayer is the number one resource that we have as believers. We have the opportunity to engage heaven and see miracles. The Holy Spirit told me one day, what is a miracle to them, Autumn, can be your everyday life. I look at the life of Jesus and how he walked through, and miracles were a part of everything that he did. I want to partake in that inheritance. So yes, it is relentlessly pursuing the Lord, no matter how long it takes and no matter what that means.
I feel like one challenge is that our private, personal prayer life oftentimes should be different than what we see in the public sphere of prayer. It was actually Juan Carlos who helped me understand prayer, that my prayer life, he jokingly said my prayer life was liturgy, that I wasn't really praying, and it taught me that a big part of praying is listening, and taking time to really dive in, and even at times be a little weird in my prayer life. I mean, David danced naked before the Lord. I mean, what if we had that sort of drive in our prayer life? That's really what you're getting at, right? Is how do we become the kind of people where we're just seeing prayer utterly change everything in our life?
Well, that's exactly what happened to me. I was a pastor's daughter, raised in the church.
Welcome to the family, me too.
Thank you.
We have a club.
Yes.
You've got your
Buddies
pen too?
Here. Yes, I got my pen.
Secret handshake.
And I was raised around a bunch of extra rules when it came to prayer. And I had to realize that some of the religious things I picked up, I needed to unlearn and stop doing. I was scared to ask God for miracles because what if he didn't? What would that do to my faith? And so I became really bold when I began to unlearn what I'd picked up that wasn't even a principle of prayer in the Bible.
Yeah. So what is probably the biggest piece of advice you can give to either someone who's a new Christian and they don't really get what you're saying, or maybe someone that they pray at dinner, or maybe they pray before they go to bed at night, but they haven't had the kind of prayer experience that you're talking about? What kind of advice would you give to that person?
Take an honest audit of your prayer life. I think right now in the church culture, not just regular culture, we have got to start taking an honest audit of our prayer lives. Are we actually relentlessly pursuing God? Do we expect him to come through? And a lot of the feedback that we've got from the book is, wow, I thought I had a prayer life, but like you said earlier, I was just talking at God. I wasn't talking to God. It's time right now in our culture to be bold, to ask, and see what God, he promises to answer.
Yeah.
He promises to come through and see what he'll do for us.
I think there's also sort of a milieu in the modern age that like people don't really think prayer is going to make a difference. It's almost like a duty, or it's something Christians do. They don't really believe it will move the needle. And you always hear that from people who've never prayed, though.
Yes.
You never hear it from people who have. I've never known somebody that had a really deep prayer life, and then later on was like, I stopped praying because it didn't do anything, or like it didn't help. Don't you think?
Don't you think
it's a big part of it?
I love that you just said that. Because one of the things that I talk about in the book is I'll go and I'll travel and I'll speak everywhere, and they're like, but Autumn, how did you write a book? Or how did you get to this position? How are you doing this? And they want something more bigger than prayer.
Yeah.
And one of the major themes of this book is prayer is the insight. Prayer is not the connections. The connections come through prayer. The finances come through prayer. Prayer is the insight. And that's what we need to get back to as with the church as a whole. Prayer is the insight. Nothing else really matters except engaging the Most High on our behalf.
Yeah, that's awesome. Autumn Miles, thank you for your book, Gangster Prayer. I want to recommend it to you. It will make a big difference in your prayer life, and she will give you the tools you need to bring your prayer to that level you want it to be at. Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank
Autumn,
you.
love you, appreciate you.
God bless
you.
Thank you so much.